This man is considered the greatest of all time whenever it comes to college football coaching.
Hell yeah.
7-time national champion, fresh off a big-time signing day, recruiting the next class of future NFLers that will roll through this man's program. The head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban.
Yeah, coach!
How are we, Coach?
How you doing, man? Doing great.
Hey, how is signing day? That's got to be a lot of pressure. We saw Ryan Day find out live while he was at a press conference that Smith, Jeremiah, the
wide receiver, number one
wide receiver, actually committed to Ohio State, and he fainted almost. He's like, oh, because I guess it was like a close call. Signing day always high pressure, or what is signing day for you, and what has it been over the years? Another great class comes in.
Yeah, well, it is a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Of course, we're on the practice field half the day, while signing day is going on. We're planning for a game. We're planning for practice. So, you're spending time recruiting, but it's you got a lot of balls in the air at this time. I think every college coach would tell you this 2-week period where you're trying to get ready for a game, where you're trying to finish recruiting, where you got signing day coming up, is a really, really difficult time to manage in terms of where are you going to invest the most time. So, once you start practicing, it's a little more difficult, a little more challenging to stay with the recruiting aspects of it. But we're really happy with the class that we got. We're pleased with the guys that we got. They're the right kind of people. They're the right kind of guys. Hopefully we can add a few more good players down the road, and we'll just keep working on it.
All right, well, congrats on another great class. Let's talk about the calendar year for college football. So next year, 12-team playoff, obviously, so that's going to cut into this time as well. So there's going to be more coaches who have earned their way into practicing while the signing period is happening. Do you think there's going to come a time where this is going to change, potentially, to make people's lives make more sense? Because you should be focused. You've earned your way into the college football playoff. But then, one of the most important parts of college football is recruiting and signing your next class. And now you kind of are getting punished by what you guys have earned. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but that's just part of the job, or how do we change that?
I think that, most of us realized that how many years ago it was, 5-6 years ago, where we decided to have an early signing date. And there are benefits to that, and there are benefits to the players. But because we have an early signing date, it really kind of became the signing date probably for about 90% of the players who are getting recruited. And then the next phase of that was the recruiting calendar gets moved up, where you can have visits in the summertime and all that type of stuff, which is another thing that's probably good. But I think the most difficult part of that is you got all this stuff coming together at once in terms of, practice, preparation for a bowl game or a playoff game, as well as a signing date. And I don't really have a solution that would say what would make it better. Taking away the early signing date, that obviously would clear up the preparation for the games. Moving the signing date up further would impact high school players probably. I mean, if I was a high school coach, I wouldn't want a player on my team to be able to sign before he finished playing for me, because you may have some of that we have in college, where a player says, well, I'm not going to play in the bowl game because I'm going to get ready for the NFL. Well, I'm not going to really play my high school season because I already have a college scholarship. So, there's a lot of pros and cons to all this. I think it is what it is, and we all have to live with it. I'm not complaining about it.
No. It was me.
Difficult.
Yeah, it was me complaining for you just because it doesn't seem to make sense. Like in the NFL, for instance, they have these head coaching interviews that take place, and normally it's the coordinators for the teams that are in AFC Championship, NFC Championship, or the Super Bowl, and this is the biggest game of their lives, potentially, and they've earned the head coaching interviews. But for Monday, Tuesday of the week of the Super Bowl, these guys have to go interview because they might not get the job. It's like, that makes no sense. That shouldn't be how it is, especially for people that are having success. So it's me bitching, not you. Just want to make sure that is very, very clear. Now, yeah, all right, cool, I got you. Yeah. So now with the transfer portal also happening, and now the seniors signing early and committing late, it's like, At what point do you have to figure out, and I know you said you have a roster manager or something, like a general manager down there, but at what point do you all right, we'll use 60% of our scholarships on high school guys, we'll use 40% on transfer portal, because we're seeing Prime got 5 guys out of high school, and then I think 10 or 11 out of the transfer portal at the same time. How do you decide that? Do you have to, what is the weighing of the options there, especially at this specific time with it all coming together at the same time?
Right. Well, we don't really have a specific number on it. Basically, we look at the transfer portal a lot like free agency, which means that if we have a need on our team, because if a guy's going to transfer, he probably needs to play. He's looking for a place to play. So it's important for him to be able to play. It's important for you to be able to need him to play. So we look at the transfer portal like, hey, if we're missing maybe a left tackle, or we're missing a linebacker on defense, whatever the position is, we're really searching to try to complement our roster, with guys that we could get from the transfer portal. So that's kind of how we've approached it, and we end up with 4 or 5 guys. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamo Williams, all those guys were guys that made significant impacts that came from, the transfer portal. So that's been very helpful to us.
That's like the new norm, it feels like, how everybody's treating it. Some teams are building directly through that. That happens in the NFL as well with free agency. Go with the vets, the established people. But in college now, there's a whole new business world that gets involved. I don't know how you guys are handling it all. Hey, but good work over there. Yeah. Good work over there. 17 to 20-year-olds deciding a lot of futures. One last question here on recruiting from Ty.
Yeah, Coach, a lot of what we see now, is like a kid will have a verbal commitment pretty early, and then as we lead up to signing day, there's all this talk about him flipping his decision from one place to another. Obviously, you guys, with a lot of your guys, are battling between a lot of these other blue bloods in college football. How do you kind of decide and manage trying to flip a kid when hey, this kid is still interested? We can maybe put a little pressure on him to see if we can get him to come, or knowing when it's time to just kind of call it quits and hey, this kid is not going to be committing to Alabama. He's going to go somewhere else. How do you manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a very good question. I think there's one sort of factor involved in recruiting now that did not used to be involved in recruiting. And that's the whole concept of I don't want to say it's pay for play, but name, image, and likeness has turned into something very similar to that. So what you have in some cases is you have players who are looking to create value for their future. They're looking to go to a program where they can have a good quality of life, but at the same time, their personal development, their academic development, their career development, on and off the field, are all things that are most important to them and their family. And then you have some people that are just looking for, where can I make the best deal? And, sometimes those factors change, toward the end. And you have to be aware of, which guys are solid, which guys are coming here for the reasons that you really recruited them, which was to create value for their future and try to allow them to have a really good quality of life while they're doing that. But at the same time, knowing that there's guys out there that are looking and searching for, where can I make the best deal? So, and you kind of got to try to recruit enough guys on the board that are good players that they can complement each one of these types of guys that are making these decisions. So there's a few more factors involved in where guys go to school now than there used to be.
Yeah, the pay for play thing is with the collectives and how, because they're throwing out money, how much money people are getting paid and made. And I'm texting people that potentially would know, agents and such. I'm like, are these real numbers? Like, everything's inflated that you're seeing right now. Every number's being inflated by the agents. They're the ones putting it out there to put leverage on other people to potentially make more money. So nobody knows what's real and what isn't real. It's a wild transition phase right now that's happening in college. Is that an accurate depiction there of the situation, Coach?
That is accurate. I like the way you say things, so I don't have to say them. It is.
I got you, Coach. Now, transition era, not just with money and players, but also the future of college football potentially as a whole. Conman's got a question for you.
Yeah, Coach. Obviously, the conference realignments and things of that nature have kind of become very prevalent in the college football world right now. And I think it was last week, Chip Kelly did an interview basically talking about how, splitting it up into East and West, 64 teams, games on both sides, 8 divisions of 8 that you play every year, and then you schedule 6 or 7 other games elsewhere. And a lot of the things that he was talking about was how UCLA has rivalries with these schools in other sports like Arizona or Stanford, but now because that their football team is going to the Big Ten, all those rivalries are going to change. How do you feel about a format like that kind of changes the perception of you got to be in one of those Power Fives to go all the way, and kind of just splitting it up into a easier kind of travel also for these teams, and still keeping the same old school type rivalries of these legendary schools who have been playing certain teams for since the beginning?
Yeah, well, I think there's a great argument for traditions of college football. And, college football has been great for a lot of people. It's been great for fans. It's been a great opportunity for, many guys, not just in football, but in all sports. I think I read a stat where 82% of the people who won medals in the Olympics got, trained in college. So some of that is all going to change. I mean, what we see as college football right now is being completely disassociated from the traditions of what we've seen in the past. And we've had some great traditions here, as all schools do, in all sports. And some of those things are going to go by the wayside because decisions are made for mega conferences. These decisions are getting made for probably financial reasons in terms of, on one hand, to make a better program so that you can invest more in players, but on the other hand, you may be eliminating some opportunities for some other people.
Yeah, it's happening all over the place, especially with that Pac-12. He compared, you obviously have, 1,000 things going on, so you didn't hear it. He said the Pac-12 disappeared out of nowhere, $100 million business, like Bed Bath & Beyond did. Just, see ya, we are gone. That's what Chip Kelly said about it. And it's like right now, it's a whirlwind of change hitting everything at once. How does it get wrangled in, you think? Does it get figured out? How do you think this whole thing pans out, Coach, just as a man who's obviously at the top of the game?
I think it's going to continue in the same direction that it's going until something happens, I call it a thunderbolt, where maybe people start dropping sports because the finance part of it can't make sense in terms of what you can reinvest in non-revenue sports, or some players out there don't get what they were promised, and there's lots of lawsuits and stuff. There's going to be some kind of a thunderbolt because this is not a system that we have right now that has any guardrails. And in most competitive venues, there are some guardrails that, sort of control what you can and can't do, whether it's the NFL in terms of where you pick in the draft to create parity, or whatever it is. And right now it's a game of whoever's willing to invest the most has the best chance to have the best team.
Well, you talk about the NFL and, I appreciate you calling it a thunderbolt. That seems like an equalizer, like a situation that's going to take place where everybody's going to have to finally open their eyes, because it feels like it's common sense thought that if you don't have structures of contracts, there's probably going to be bad contracts. If you don't have what deals look like, there's probably going to be bad deals all over the place. Somebody has to do something, Hey, figure it out. Figure it out, smart people.
Come on, smart people.
Figure it out. All right, let's direct our attention now to the big one, the game that you've earned yourself into, the Rose Bowl coming up on New Year's Day. Chuck has a question for you, Coach.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Chuck.
Hey, I was wondering about game plan, implementation, practice, how much you've done, if that's complete. I know we tried to do in the National Football League, tried to get everything, getting ready for a Super Bowl, you had 2 weeks, so you tried to get everything done the week at home because you knew there was going to be a lot of stuff going on, media responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera. How much of that game plan is done? And when you go to L.A., I'm assuming you probably leave the day after Christmas. How much practice time and how much implementation, or is there just tweaking out there, and is it going to be mostly walkthrough type stuff?
Basically, we try to structure our practices where I think we had 3 practices that I call fundamental practices. Players have to go back, and when you have this much time off and this much time between games, you got to kind of reinvest in your conditioning, reinvest in your fundamentals, reinvest in taking care of the ball, tackling, all these things. When you don't play for a long time, you can get a little rusty at. So we try to spend 3 days on that, and then we have a normal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of what we would do in the season here, where we're trying to, implement the plan, as if we were playing a game on Saturday. And then when we go to LA, we'll repeat that same thing again, but like 1 day in advance. So we're a little back end loaded on the rest time for the game.
Okay, with the Super Bowl, I was very lucky to play one my rookie year. Nobody had a clue who I was, so I didn't have any distractions. There was no events that I was getting asked to go to, but all my friends were. For these types of games, obviously you've been to them a lot. Media responsibilities, events, distractions, there's a lot of that for the players, or do you keep them guarded away from all of it?
No, we have some responsibilities that, sort of go with the territory that are required, for the players to be involved in. But, I think it takes mature guys to be able to manage external factors that, can cloud, how focused you are and what you need to do. But what I try to emphasize with the players is, look, man, when we're here, we got to focus. I know it's going to be Christmas in a couple days, but we got to focus on practice. We got to focus on the meetings. We got to reinvest in what we got to do to go play well in this game. And, excellence has a price. It doesn't come easy. It's not free. So we all got to make an investment in what we got to do when we're here. And then the couple days we have off for Christmas, I want you to enjoy yourself. And then when we refocus, I don't care if we have media or whatever that we have to deal with, we got to focus on what we got to do on the field to play well. And that's got to be the number one priority for all of us.
Excellence isn't free? Is that what you said?
It's not free. The price. Got to pay for it up front, too.
Every day.
Yep. Awesome.
Every day. How are the boys taking it? How do you feel about the team? Vibes good? Moxie high?
It's good. Once we started, sort of planning for the game, that gave them a focus. I think, when you get this point in the season and you've played this many games, 13 games, players are into a rhythm of what are we doing to get ready for the game, and that's where their focus is. So, those first 3 days were hump days, I call them, in terms of trying to get guys to do things the way you want, but the players did a good job of it, and they've been really good this week.
Hey, huge win over Georgia in that SEC championship.
Yep. Yeah.
You can see how maybe a not as mature team maybe feel themselves a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because at the beginning of the season, these boys were cast off.
Yeah,
that's right.
This team stinks. Mm-hmm. Oh, this isn't the same Alabama. Now here we are, rolling into the Rose Bowl. Merry Christmas, Coach. Have a phenomenal holiday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, well, you can't be drinking that Kool-Aid that you're talking about. You got to be able to stay focused and have a sense of purpose in what you're doing, and that's what some of these external things can do to you. So it's much more difficult to deal with success than it is when you get your butt beat. So hopefully our players are mature enough to do it. And Merry Christmas to you all. Have a great holiday.
Hey, you're the man. Hey, that team's real good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Nick Saban. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Coach.
That was awesome. Yeah, that's the Kool-Aid, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about Jonestown. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember?
We don't need to be doing that. It'll kill you, okay? Maybe when everybody else is drinking the Kool-Aid, you just watch them. Mm-hmm. All right? You need
rat poison.
Need to stick. Yeah, he is.
Excellence has a price.
Yeah, dude.
Unreal.
That is. That's a great way. It's all the same message.
Do every day.
Yeah. It's just how you word it, Yeah, that's like J.J. Watt's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is it? Success isn't
leased.
owned,
Yeah.
it's leased. And rent is due every single day.
Yep.
J.J. Watt.
Why? Remember the name.